The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm the host of the webinar, and together we do have other organizers who helped us with the webinar today. We have Kieran and we have Brooks in the call. Thanks for joining. We would like to introduce you with our speaker today, Ashley Pare. And we do represent the Human Development and Leadership Division for American Society for Quality. For those who are not members of our division, they could. And just so you know who do we represent, we're a global division and aiming to enrich the personal and professional lives of our members and non-members, the global community, to triumph over current and future challenges. We're continuously looking for new speakers within the range of our body of knowledge, which you can find on our website. We host monthly webinars, and if you are interested or you want to be introduced to future webinars, we'll be very happy to welcome you. There is a book of knowledge that can be found on our website. The link is shared on the chat box. Before we begin the webinar, let me go over some housekeeping rules and some webinar rules. If there is any questions, please type under the question sections, not the chat box, and we will answer those questions. The webinar will be held for 45 minutes, and then we'll have 15 minutes about question and answer. If you want continuing education credit, it's a 0.1 credit, and you will be receiving an email that certifies that. It's only given to those people who have been attending for minimum 40 minutes. You'll see that email after the call. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Ashley, will you help us understand a little bit more about you?
Yes, thank you, Sadita, and thank you, everyone. Good evening. If you're joining us maybe from work or from home, happy to be here and be part of the ASQ organization. So I'm excited to share with you more about myself and negotiation and self-advocacy at work. So I am Pare, the founder of Own Your Worth, which is a coaching and consulting business, helping people advance their careers, negotiate salaries, promotions, and leadership roles at work. I am very passionate about closing the gender wage gap and work with both private clients and organizations to grow careers. So I'm excited to work with you this evening and have a great discussion on negotiation and self-advocacy prepared for you.
Thank you, Ashley. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So if we could advance to the next slide, even the next one. So that's me. So tonight I want to talk with you about my story, why I founded my company, and what I've been up to. I want to mention some industry secrets that will help you in thinking about your next negotiation. Want to talk about why people fail. So what comes up when you're thinking about advocating for yourself at work and what doesn't work. And then we'll get to the good stuff, which is what you need to know to be successful. So a little bit more about me and my story. My corporate background has been in HR. I've worked in pharma, technology, consulting, a few different industries, and I was really passionate about working with different companies, helping teams to grow from either startup to public companies. And within my background and my own story, I've had success negotiating salaries and promotions throughout my career, but at a company when I was working and living in New York City a few years back, I had really my dream job. I was on the 52nd floor of a large New York City building with an amazing view of the city, and I was working really, really long hours. I was traveling the world, and I got a phone call from Facebook one day, and I realized through the interview process and asking them about their salary range for this role I was interviewing for, that I was severely underpaid. So based off of the information I received from Facebook and that this role with Facebook would potentially be lesser in scope than the role I was in, I finally got the courage to ask my boss for a raise. And I had been holding off on that because of some of the reasons that we'll talk about tonight in our session is what was holding me back from advocating for myself before Facebook reached out to me was really fear. So I went pretty, I was pretty emotional, I would say, about this information I had, and I made an emotional ask of my boss, and he had an emotional response. He told me he was angry at me for asking for more money, and you can imagine that the conversation didn't go well, and the answer was no. So I realized during that experience, it was a different company, it was a different boss, and I had never had those feelings before for advocating for myself. So I really started to look at what was happening, what happened to me, and what I could have done differently to improve in my career going forward. And fast forward a couple of years from that, and I realized that my passion was really in negotiating and helping others negotiate. So I've used and leveraged my HR experience to now help others avoid the mistakes I made and what I see in my clients by understanding what holds you back, understanding the company side, understanding market research. So that experience for me really motivated me to find a new path and become brave enough to leave my corporate HR job to be able to better impact employees and managers who are looking to not only develop leaders within their organization, but also become leaders. And so I work with clients through something I call intuitive leadership. We all have leadership capabilities within us, and that was missing for me when I was in front of my boss when I had this fear. I didn't connect to what was really important to me, and I didn't make a case. So we're going to talk about some of the mistakes that I made so that way you can avoid that piece. And so I've been on a mission since then to advocate for equal pay and to empower those to really make important shifts in their career to create lives of your dreams, careers of your dreams. So let's talk a little bit more about that, and starting with what doesn't work. So if you're thinking about asking for a raise or negotiating for flexibility or even speaking up in a meeting, right? What doesn't work to help move your career forward is working hard and keeping your head down. In my story, I was working really hard and I didn't ask for what I needed until it got to a point where I was getting phone calls from another organization and I was emotionally unprepared to have that conversation because I waited so long. So unfortunately, companies don't always know how hard you're working. And if you're not speaking up, that's not going to advance your career. We can't wait for organizations to take us to that next level. It is really up to us. So what else doesn't work is avoiding confrontation. So if you avoid confrontation, you're probably avoiding the really important discussions that you need to have either with your boss or even a peer. So what doesn't work in thinking about your career growth is avoiding that tough discussion with a peer when a meeting doesn't go well, or waiting until your performance review at the end of the year and having a non-productive discussion with your boss. So waiting, holding back what you're really wanting to say, all of those things are not going to keep you in the seat of power, and you may be looked over either for an internal promotion or for potential leadership development opportunities within your company. So let's talk about what does work. Tools and opportunities that you can create for yourself to really help you grow your career, which is preparing yourself to advocate, right? Not only for yourself, but others around you, because we all need support and mentorship. And to get ahead in your career, really any way in life, you have to prepare to have tough conversations. You really have to be willing to speak your truth. You have to get uncomfortable and find comfort in being uncomfortable. And you have to acknowledge your self-limiting beliefs. So fears that hold us back. My fear in not asking for my raise for a long time was that I'd upset my boss, that somehow I would hurt his feelings or put him in an uncomfortable position. And so I held back on what I wanted, even though that was making me unhappy and it was demotivating me even in this position and company that I loved. So letting go of the beliefs that hold us back, whether it's we're not good enough or it's not a good time, right? If you really want to grow your career and you're looking to find ways to advocate for yourself at work, this is where you can start, right? Preparing to have tough discussions is really about preparing yourself to think through the points you'd like to make, to really get clear on what you want to ask when you're in front of your boss. So I always share with my clients, you should never ask for a raise for the first time in front of your boss. If you have to get in front of the mirror or talk to your dog or a friend, but you really need to practice this language and prepare yourself, because you want to reduce the amount of potential emotions that may come up during the meeting. And that's the piece that I missed. So, and I would love to know from you, attendees, participants tonight, have you successfully negotiated a salary increase, let's say in the past 2 years? So you should have a poll, and I'd love to know if you've successfully negotiated a salary increase in the past 2 years.
So I did launch the poll. We'll wait for some extra seconds here. There's 60% who voted already. Well, 70%. They're quick. They all want to speak. We all do that. So some might be on the phone, some might be a bit harder, but we do have about 84%, so we'll close that one. And we do have 69% no, who did not successfully negotiate or who didn't negotiate at all, and then yes to 31%.
Wow, so that's a big group, right, of people on this call that have not negotiated. And either maybe you've tried and you weren't successful, or you didn't. Maybe you held back, and maybe that's why you're on this call tonight, is to learn how to begin those conversations, where to start your preparation and thinking about advocating for yourself, whether it is getting more responsibility or getting recognition for the responsibility you have. If your job description has changed, if you have taken on more responsibility in your role since you joined or since you were promoted, right, these are all great times to think about, what do you want to ask for? How will you continue committing to this organization, but with your time and your effort and your valuable experience, right? What do you want to get in return for that? So we'll talk a little bit about some of the fears, right, that hold us back, or what other people may think. But I hope that tonight you get some motivation to start thinking about how you want to build your case to advocate for you. I have a client in LA who is not only, she negotiated for a salary negotiation, so a 30% increase in pay and a position to director level on the leadership team, and she's asking for flexibility. So there's many things that are on the table within organizations that you can advocate for and ask, because good companies want to keep great talent. And if you've been with your company long term, it's a great time to start thinking about what else they can do to help invest in you, since you have committed your time to them. I want to share some industry secrets with you. From an HR standpoint, working with clients and friends and even family, right, the questions I get all the time are, you know, if I ask for more, aren't they going to take the offer away? You know, if you're negotiating for a new job, the big fear I hear and see all the time in workshops and with my clients is, if I ask for too much, you know, will they rescind the offer? Right? And so companies use deflection strategies. Right? This is a huge industry secret, and a deflection strategy sounds something like, this offer is non-negotiable. Or, I'm sorry, I wish I could, but my hands are tied. Or I would love to give you a raise, but your raise may disrupt internal equity. Or I had a client. I had a client back a couple of years ago, and the client was asking for a raise, and the manager said, well, I'm sorry, you're already the highest paid person on the team. So that person didn't know how to respond to that, but that is a deflection strategy, right? So when you're advocating for yourself within work, whether it's asking for money or asking for additional vacation or asking for a seat at the table, no matter what you are advocating for, right, you have to be prepared for the response of yes, no, and maybe. So you're really always negotiating with another person who has their own story. We're all people. We all have our own relationship to money. And if you're going into a discussion, right, I love to say that negotiations are just discussions to find a common ground. If you're going into one of these discussions, right, what do you know about that person on the other side of the table? Have they advocated for themselves? That is a huge hurdle to overcome. If you have a manager that is not comfortable advocating for themselves, how can you help them advocate for you? So if you hear any of these deflection strategies, right, you have to dig deeper. Right, something my client could have said when her boss said, you know, you're already the highest paid person on the team. She had market research that she was underpaid. So a response to that could have been, you know, I understand the difficult position that may put you in, but I have done my homework and my research, and I believe that not only myself, but also our team is underpaid. What other information do you need from me to be able to advocate for us? Right, so when you hear deflection strategies, I find that stops people in their tracks. And I am inviting you to ask questions, get creative, and prepare in advance based off of the person you are negotiating with or asking something of. How might they respond? And what do you know about that person? So you can overcome objections, right? Companies are people. And depending on who is in charge, right, you may hear a deflection strategy. But this is when letting go of self-limiting beliefs really becomes important. If you don't believe you are worth a $30,000 increase, right, how will you convince your boss that you are? So being able to overcome any objections and be persistent is what I find my clients have the most success in, persistence in asking for what they want. So let's go to what most people really fear, right? Why people fail is often because they don't ask, right? There's a fear that if I do ask, there could be all of these potential negative consequences, right? So if you're afraid, I will ask you and encourage you to talk through your worst case scenario fears, right? Are they based in fact, or is it based in a projected fear or a perceived fear, right? What is holding you back? Think through what has held you back in your career so far from advocating, right? From speaking up, from asking questions, right? Is it the company culture and the environment, or is it something internal that is preventing you from being brave and speaking up for what you want, right? Our careers grow and advance based off of our initiative, our desire, our willpower. If you have a desire to be seen, right, how are you creating an environment around you where it's safe for you to speak up? So let's just talk a little bit about what fears have held you back. So we'll do another poll here, and I would love to know, what is the biggest fear that has held you back from self-advocating? So is it a fear of your boss, a fear of potential consequences? Is it just a fear of, not just, but is it a fear of hearing no for an answer? Okay, or is it something else?
Yes, so we just launched the poll. You can all vote if you can. And, pick up your biggest fear. It's a one choice, so focus on the biggest one. We have about 70. Okay, we'll give it a second. Then 79%, we'll close it. 81, there's some people already. 83,
I
okay.
wonder, I wonder what it'll be. Sadita, do you have a guess? Do you have a guess of which one will be the biggest one?
Well, I don't have a fear at all, so I don't know. I do know that it is challenging, and to me, it's more about planning it than the fear itself of facing, because I don't have a fear of facing. I think planning will be interesting. So let's launch what we have as a result and share that. So we have 57%. What is it may be negative consequences? And then second ranking would be other, 20%. And the 16% is fear of what my boss will think. And then 7% fear of getting no for an answer. So negative consequences, and then the other. If you have other, you might even want to use the question box, and you can list your fears there. We'll take care of those. And we'll share.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, I would love to know what other fears, right, are you experiencing? And I'm going to make sure we leave enough time for plenty of questions for you to bring up, other fears or other reasons that may have held you back from asking for what you want or self-advocating. So, worrying there may be negative consequences, right? My excitement about seeing that is actually because what if we flipped that, right? What if there were negative consequences for not asking? Right? Would that still hold you back? Because the negative consequences of not asking for what you want, there are many. There's a real financial disadvantage for waiting to ask for a raise, right? That's money in your pocket to pay off student loans, to pay for healthcare, to pay to live in big cities, to pay for retirement, right? So there are consequences, negative consequences for not asking, right? There are reasons why you may not be where you'd like to be, right? So there's always two sides to the fears, and thinking through, Sadita, like you said, right, the preparation piece. If you can outline all the potential negative consequences that could happen, and then weigh that with what are the consequences if I say nothing and I don't advocate for what I believe I've earned, right? Or if I don't advocate for where I would like to see myself in my career, right? Either as a manager, or maybe you want to move back to an individual contributor role because management isn't for you. Whatever it is, this is all about speaking up and weighing the options. And I'm hoping that this is encouraging you to be able to look at both sides and know that if there are serious negative consequences for asking for what you want at an organization, why are you with that organization? What is really keeping you there? If you are unable to speak up, right, is that the type of culture that is going to enable you to get where you want to be in your life and your career? Right? There are companies that treat their employees well. I work with many of them, and I have been lucky to work with many of them. Right? And almost always it comes down to what we talked about in the beginning, is preparing to have a tough discussion. So I don't know, Sadita, are there any other fears that came up in the question box?
Anonymous, so no one sees your name in the question box except the organizers. So we don't need to share the name, that's fine. One of the fears there that I noticed is that I might be asking for more than I should be paid, which is kind of interesting. Like, how do we evaluate what our worth is? Maybe a market study as well, and what we are giving at workplace or in that department specifically.
Yeah, so the fear Sudita was afraid that they might be asking for more than what they're worth.
Yes, one of them is that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so being prepared to negotiate, right, is the biggest piece that you can take away from the session tonight, is doing your research, doing your homework. So there's market data available via salary.com, payscale.com. So those two resources are employer-reported data. Then, of course, there's Glassdoor. So that's employee-reported data. So I have access as HR and an employer, access to even more surveys. You can even ask your HR department, hey, I would love to know the approved range for someone at my level or in this band. Right, so doing your research. What about asking your peers? People maybe inside of your company or externally, right, in similar roles. Hey, what are you earning? The more we list the transparency around pay, more we create transparency around pay, the easier it will be for you to have the information you need. But even thinking about that, right, fear of maybe it's too much. What's underneath that? Because if you are valuable, you have education and background and skill set and experience at different organizations, and this is your life and your time and your commitment. So if you believe you're asking for too much, right, how will you get someone on board to advocate for you? So when working with clients, I ask, right, all the time, what would make you feel so excited to wake up when you're earning what number? Like, what is the number that you get excited when you wake up? What is the number that will feel good for you to share? What is the number that's going to make you feel comfortable? Right, so anything that market research shows, that is just a point in the sand to be able to start discussions around. I believe you're worth it. And if you can build a case internally as to what would happen if you left your position, right? How would that affect the organization? What would they be missing? How hard would it be for them to replace you? That is worth a lot. Organizations spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of man and women power finding top candidates. So you are super valuable in the market, and having gone through stacks and stacks and stacks of resumes for each position, when you are in a role and you want to grow, right, you have capital within that organization. So I encourage you to find a number that you feel super comfortable with, that is in the range somewhere of market data. And if you want to go above the range, if you have the case to back it up, then you should go for it.
Another fear mentioned here is feeling unappreciated for influence and contribution. So, you know, like the informal leaders, I would say sometimes do have the power of influence of peer-to-peer or anything that is influence-based, and maybe might not be what's your traditional job title. That's how I'm interpreting this comment here. That's one. Another one mentioned was, can I ask, when there is an economic downturn in the industry, and solvent, how do you do it to maximize the chance of getting a yes? Another fear, I'm grateful for the opportunity presented, and I wouldn't want to start with the wrong foot. Maybe at the beginning, you don't know expectations.
I would like to make a point about that one, Savita. So if you're negotiating with a new company or even a new boss, if you're moving internally, right, and you went through the internal promotion process and they selected you, right, this is when you have the most leverage as an employee. New job offer and taking a new role internally. Right, and if your fear is coming up of, oh, I want to start on a good foot, right, again, if we flip that, if you don't ask, or if you perceive that asking at the beginning of a new relationship with a boss is going to put you on a negative path, right, then what does that say about the potential future relationship you'll have with your manager? So you want to start having these honest, open, important discussions as early as possible to know if this is the right company for you, or to know how you'll be treated when, if you're a manager, you want to advocate for your team members. Right? This goes up and down, both for you and your manager, but also if you're a leader within the organization. Right? How will you advocate for your team members? So knowing that having a tough discussion will get you tons of information about not only the organization you're working with, but also that boss, right? That person. So you want to use this as an opportunity, or you can use it as an opportunity to say, hey, will this person be on my side? Are they willing to go to bat for me? I want to, check this out by asking them. And some of the language that I find really helpful my clients have used is, I've done some market research. I'm really excited about being on your team. I think I'm going to make a great impact here. And based off of my research, I was really hoping to be closer to $90,000 to $100,000 on my base. And I was really wondering and hoping that you and the company might consider doing something for me to get me closer to that range. Is that something you can consider? So asking in that way, right, opens up a dialogue and a discussion. And if your boss were to, or your future boss were to react negatively, right, I would ask you to think about whether or not you want to work with that person going forward. Anytime you're self-advocating, right, this is gathering information for you, for what you want in your career in life, for what you will accept as an employee and as a person.
And as I'm rereading one of the, I know we're going to go to question and answers, but as I'm rereading one of the comments about the fear of starting with the wrong food, is my fear would be that I seem ungrateful for the opportunity presented, which to me, it's coming as, why would we want to feel ungrateful for a job where we are giving because we're doing and performing? But I might be reading maybe that
No.
self.
I think that's an accurate observation, Sarita, that money is energy. So money flows in and out, right? Money is energy. It's giving and receiving. So being ungrateful for something, right, that means there's not a balance between what you're giving, what you're allowing yourself to receive. So in negotiation, right, this is a discussion about where you can land that feels comfortable for you and the other party, the other person. The company and your boss, right, should be grateful to have you on the team because you are giving your time, your expertise, right? If you are seen as ungrateful, well, what does that mean? Right? Should we work for free? And this is a big discussion in the nonprofit world. Right? There's a lot of pressure to work hard for little, and in order for us to be givers, right, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to receive. Otherwise, we will be burned out, and we won't be living fulfilled lives. We might never make it to that leadership position because we're not putting ourselves in an environment that we can best support ourselves going forward. So I'm curious, and I would ask, right, you to think about what would you be ungrateful for. And I understand with my fears that these are things that I invite you to flip upside down, and what is the alternative, or what is the opposite of what comes up for you.
I think we're done with the fears.
There's many. One other point I learned recently about fears that I just wanted to make was that I found this really incredible, is that we're born with 2 fears, they say, only 2 fears, and we live with over 4,000 as we grow into adults. So the 2 fears we're born with are the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. So I would invite you to stick to those 2 fears.
Let's be child again.
Yes. No fear. So one really great tool that I want to leave you with is how to avoid the timing mistake. So whenever I work with my clients, that client I met in LA, she is asking for a director level promotion. She'd been with the company for over 1.5 years, and she's saying, when is the right time? Do I do it now? Do I do it before my performance review? We don't even have performance reviews here, right? So there's all this anxiety about when. I want to do this, but what's the best way? So avoid the timing mistake, right? There's obviously a good time or a better time to ask than others. So if you're in, the finance field, you don't want to be asking when budgets are about to be approved or right after they've been approved, right? At the end of the quarter in sales is probably not the best time, right? So knowing when your product is launching or the busy time of year or when you have annual reviews, right? Understanding your organization's culture by asking, I really, really, really encourage you and to use HR, right, as a leverage point, because I've always shared this information if employees came to me. Hey, when's a good time to ask? Because if you wait until your annual review comes, right, budgets are already approved before that, and you don't have much wiggle room to ask for an increase or anything really outside of what has been already approved. So if you're looking to get a promotion, if you want to advocate for yourself, you can absolutely have that discussion during the review and say, I would really love to get a promotion within the next 3 to 6 months within this organization, and I would love your support, dear manager. I want to talk about what you see might be missing in order for me to get there. This is my strengths, what I believe are my strengths. This is the feedback I've received. And what do you need to see from me to be willing to advocate for me in the next 3 to 6 months? I am passionate about getting promoted. What do you need? So you can ask during the review cycle, right, that you're setting the intention. You want to prepare your boss for your ask that you will be making. So a right time to ask for what you want is outside, right, of any formal process internally. If you can grab coffee or set up a weekly one-on-one with your boss and start getting feedback, right? Asking about your career development. I always share that you never want to just say, hey boss, can we chat about my pay? Right? They might avoid you. So you can say, I'd love to talk to you about my career development and what that looks like for me going forward within this organization. So another great time to ask is when you've done your homework and you're armed with peer and managerial feedback. If you have had a great year and you've received positive feedback from your team members or your clients or customers, or the product is done really well, right? How can you gather feedback to support your case? Right? If you've helped save the company money, if you helped launch a new product, right? If there's a great time around an event that you had a big part in, and if you can get feedback, and please know that these conversations, right, when you're ready to advocate for what you want, these conversations probably will be 2, 3, maybe 4 conversations even. It doesn't happen in one conversation, right? The process would be, dear boss, are you willing to review my salary with me? I'd like to be considered for a promotion. What else do you need from me to advocate for me? What else do you need from me to prepare to help you get this approved, right? Asking your boss what else do they need from you prevents that situation where you feel you don't have power, right? And you're all of a sudden become a team. How can you both work on this together? So timing is really preparing yourself and your boss that you're going to be making an ask and that you've done your homework. Okay, so thinking about how your company operates and when you have your best chances to get what you need, and also being patient, knowing that it's okay to say, you can get back to me. Can I set up a follow-up meeting with you in the next 3 weeks? Right? It's going to take time. So I really am hoping that you, since many of you have not negotiated in the past 2 years for a raise specifically, I hope you can start, the wheels are turning and you're thinking about how you can start having these discussions. I would love to see everyone here get a raise in 2018. Right? After 2 years, it's time. It's your time.
We'll have another webinar and test the fears again.
Yes, yes.
We might want to open to question and answer, since there were many comments before, so I don't know if we covered all of them, so it would be interesting to get some more specific and personal questions you might have. One of the questions we have, would you be okay? Anything else we need to cover before?
I did want to invite, this is a time for you to ask questions, no matter what you're thinking about advocating for. So feel free to put in questions, and I'll do my best to go through them, and we'll leave some time. But I also wanted to invite you, my gift to you is a complimentary 1-hour consultation. So if you're thinking about asking for a raise, if you are ready to negotiate for your next level in your career, please email me. Email me tonight. I have 7 free consultations, and I would love to talk with you. So
drop the calls yet.
Yeah, stay on for the Q&A, but I'm here. So go ahead.
Thanks, Ashley. That's I think I appreciate that a lot. We do have a couple of questions already. So one of them is, what if providing market research, so having that plan handy there, market research data is not appropriate in negotiation process? Like, I guess.
Sorry, what was the first part of the question?
So in the prep time, you might want to research some market research data on what the job and salary is worth, and how. What about if it's not appreciated in the negotiation process? I guess that depends on the relationship you have with the manager, whoever you're discussing with, but what if they see you kind of too prepared for it?
So what if using the market research isn't helpful, if it's not appreciated by the person you're talking with?
Yes.
Yeah, so I would, if you're thinking that, right, I would ask why. So what is it about this organization's philosophy around pay that they aren't looking at external data, right? So do you have any other research leverage, right, to use to be able to say, it's kind of like, well, why would you stay? Why would you continue investing in that organization if they're not willing to pay at market data? So you can ask your boss. So what I'm hearing is this company doesn't appreciate or reference market data, and even though I have this information and I feel that I may be underpaid for my expertise and experience, you're asking me to continue contributing at the level I'm contributing at for less pay than I could get somewhere else, right? Why should I continue investing here? So thinking through, if you think that might be an objection you receive, right? Thinking through how you want to counter that. Right? Why? Ask a question. Why wouldn't we consider external data? What's the thought process behind that? I don't understand.
And I guess that goes back to the fear you mentioned before of confronting itself more than just about the data. It's kind of a fear of speaking of. A very good question here I'm seeing is, what if my direct boss has tried, so has been advocating for me, and then his direct boss didn't approve? So what can I do to help him basically in this advocating process?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So if your boss is saying, I'm on board, I fully approve and appreciate your hard work, right? And I'm going to get this for you, or I'm going to try to get this for you, right? And then your boss, if you know your boss has tried, you want to understand the objections of that next level person. So having a frank conversation with your boss of saying, well, what is it? What objections have you heard? Or what is the challenge? Like, what else can we do? Really being curious around, well, what's missing? Also letting your boss know that you can let his or her boss know that you're going to be persistent, that this is important to you, and you'll be patient, but you would like some feedback or a timeline. When can you expect this? Right? So your boss does have to step up and do his or her job, but you having that conversation and letting your boss know, okay, I have some flexibility here, but not so much. Like, what else do we need to do? So you don't, you want to make sure that that's just not another deflection strategy to avoid having that tough conversation. So finding out as much information as you can, and maybe even asking a peer. If you've had employees on your team or in your company go through the promotion process, ask them what's worked.
And I agree with that. And in my experience, I've always tried to see where do my objectives fall into the organizational objectives, because sometimes we have misalignment between, even in our performance review, what objectives we're being asked to accomplish, and then how important those are to the strategic company strategic objectives, and see if we can help direct help into what matters to a high level. So that might ease a little bit the process.
Yeah.
We do have another question.
I have a question. Could you talk a little bit about threatening to leave as a strategy?
To leave?
Threatening to
leave. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do that as well.
So yeah. So actually, going back to my raise mistake, back in that company in New York City, I was the head of HR for a global sales organization, and that was the process that employees realized that in order for them to get increases, they had to come with another job offer. And so they threatened, to leave, and the organization would approve really big increases. This was in the sales organization. But you can guess how long the employees actually stayed with the company after even getting that raise. The average tenure, right, if you go through that process, is probably less than a year. Because what happens is, if you wait that long as an employee, if you have to wait and then threaten, right, to leave, why would you want to continue staying there? If you're already feeling undervalued and underappreciated, right, you can of course attempt that strategy, but threatening, right, is going to make this a much more difficult discussion, and it's going to be you against them versus, I'd really like to feel supported here, and dear manager, I'd like to figure out what we can do to help me through that. But if there's a threatening piece, right, I would just ask, are you really going to be happy there, even if you get it? Right? Because it's not always about the money. It's really about, are you being seen, right? Are you valued for your contribution? And the risk is, if you say, I have another job offer, or I'm thinking about leaving, right? What I encourage clients to say is, based off of this market data and based off the market today, I'm getting phone calls from recruiters on a regular basis, and I would love to be comfortable saying no to them, right? So that's a way to soften, right? It's not a threat that you're going to leave, but it lets them know you have the opportunity. And so if you're getting to that point, I would just say, prepare your resume and think about really what you want next, finding clarity to start that job search process, because it will probably be inevitable if you're reaching that point emotionally and in the discussion.
That's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And another question we have is, what if you're looking to make a career change into a new field? Now, there is no specified if it's within the same company or a different company, and then you are not prepared for taking a huge pay cut. I'm assuming here there is not enough skills yet built.
Yeah. So career transitions. I have worked with a client in St. Louis. I'm in Boston, but she switched from urban planning into user design research in a tech company. She went through a boot camp school experience to get some additional skill set. And when her and I started working together, she had been with the company 3 months, and she was severely underpaid. So she was at the low end of the range for an entry-level UX designer, and she did not negotiate. So we worked together, and within 4 weeks of our working together, she asked for a $30,000 increase, and she received a $23,000 raise. Because she built a case, not only did she already make great impact within 3 to 4 months at her company, but she made the case that really we worked on her confidence first, right? Because she forgot or left out the fact that she had a master's degree. She had over 10 years of experience, right? So when you're career transitioning, your previous skills and your former experience doesn't disappear. This is your opportunity to self-advocate and say, because I have all of this other industry experience and all of these other experiences, either managing or leading or training, right? I am going to be even more valuable to your organization because of this. So it's about how you approach it. You may have to start at the lower end of the range in a new field, but being able to grow quickly, right? Do not let that career transition hold you back, because your experiences and who you are very, very valuable. And it's the way in which you can let your employer know what they're getting that makes you unique, that other people who never career transitioned, right, might not have. They don't have that outside viewpoint. So can be a very big advantage, actually.
Good. Another question we have is about promotion time during review. So if somebody is promoted during review time but wants to negotiate shortly after that, and I'm asking again the question if that promotion happened without negotiation to begin with, like why would somebody want to negotiate right after promotion?
Yeah. So if your company has a review period, a promotion period where maybe they only do promotions once a year or at a certain time or twice a year, right? Again, this is doing your homework in having the conversations, right? This is the peacock slide, right? You have to be willing to have a tough conversation. So this means preparing before that promotion cycle begins by saying, hey boss, can we chat about my career development? I know that I might be up for promotion in the next couple of months, and I really wanted to understand how the negotiation process works internally. So going to internal people who are promoted, HR, and your boss, to start having these conversations to let them know that you would love to be promoted, but you'd also love to be moved into a salary range that is equal to or above the range that you'd be promoted in. So finding out where you fall in your scale of the company's ranges is important. It's all about you, right, becoming the CEO of your career and having these discussions before you accept the promotion. And if a company is pushing you, if HR is pushing you, again, take a step back and ask, why is this? What other information do I want to know? And is this going to be worth it? Right? Even if you ask, I don't always get everything I want in negotiating, right? But I go to the table ready to ask for everything I want, and I come away with a few, but I always feel good knowing that I advocated for what I wanted. So you can absolutely ask for what you want. I want you to feel good if you say yes for that promotion, that you're willing to give it 110%, right, going into that new role. And that's what your employer would want too. So you can say that. Now, I wouldn't feel comfortable giving this my all until we're able to have a more concrete discussion around the salary for this new position.
Yep, and I did go through the same experience where I would have a new manager right 2 months before review phase, and I was promoted because the previous boss had asked. And then I said, this is not the promotion that we have been asking for. So even though we might think it's just too soon, we need a plan maybe for next year, but we need a plan and a negotiated plan from both sides. That's
yes, a plan.
Somebody's asking, is there any realistic percentage pay raise like to ask for? Is it 5%, 15%? Is there any, or does it depend by job, by timing? And I guess that's not golden
Yeah,
number
I
there?
mean, I think depends on the industry specifically, usually, but I would say if you're getting promoted, anywhere from 10 to 20% increase in pay is what you can be comfortable asking for. Depends also on where you are on the scale. So if you're already at the lower end for whatever reason, because maybe you haven't negotiated or because the company pays that way, you can absolutely ask for more. So when the client that I shared asked for a $30,000 increase, right? When you look at that, it was over a 40% increase. She was like, "What do you mean?" Right? So it's not about the numbers. It's about, are you going to be excited to accept that number? Is it fair? Right? Is it competitive? And are you willing to accept it? So this 10% increase, right? Again, I know from an objection standpoint on the employer side, oh, we just don't give raises over 10%. Right? Ask why. Ask how that is serving them as an employer. You don't have to take their objections at face value. You can get more information.
And
please do.
Would that fall within, because I do know that there is a range for each salary, so sometimes they say not more than this much, but when you go and check where is the maximum of that range, you see that that is actually could be included in that range, so they wouldn't have to go above and beyond to do it for you only. It is included within the range of the pay scale. Do you look into that information if it's available when you kind of come up with a percentage on top of the market research?
Yeah, of course. You can ask, where do I fall within the range? And I would like to be, at the high end of the range. You can ask about what the options are to even go above the range, or would that require another promotion? So just getting really as much information as you can as to where you fall. And it could even be a two-step process, right? You ask for what you want and they get you there over 6 months or something, if there's a leveling concern.
And talking about market research, there's a couple of people asking, and this would be our last question, asking about what are the resources out there. They mentioned salary.com, PayScale, Glassdoor. Are there any good resources you've been using that you would recommend?
Yeah, there are so many now online. So, even LinkedIn has a new feature with salary information, which I think is pretty accurate because more companies are putting information on the job posting. So you can ask your HR representative to share salary data, but PayScale and salary.com, again, are employer reported. I know from a government standpoint, you can find information online on the Business Bureau. So there's many different resources if you Google, right, salary information for whatever your role is. But I would use multiple sources and be aware of if it's employer or employee reported data. And you can also reach out to me via email, and if you give me more information about your role and industry, I might have a more specific resource. But those are great places to start. And the more, again, that we share with each other, right, the easier it'll be to find this information, because that's what it comes down to, right? What are the people that you respect that are in similar roles to you earning? Because that's a point to be able to say, like, wow, I'm proud, right? And I'm at the same level as so-and-so, or I'm above, and that makes me feel really good. So don't be afraid to ask others.
For quality professionals, Quality Progress has very extensive survey every year.
Interesting.
Quality Progress, okay.
And it's member reported, not employer reported.
Member reported. Are you able to type that into the chat or the notes for the members?
Yes. So, well, thanks for the questions raised, everyone. Thanks for being with us for about an hour now. And before I explain how you can get credit for tonight's webinar, I want to thank Ashley a lot for being with us tonight and sharing her experience, as well as our organizers who helped with the webinar. Kieran and Brooks, thanks for being here. Today's presentation and recording of the webinar will be posted on our website, and we do have a YouTube channel. It will post within 1 or 2 days, basically. Our next webinar is already out there on our website. Will be on April 24th. And this time we're changing timing based on your surveys of previous webinars. So we will appreciate your feedback on those so we can take some action items. We're going to have a lunch webinar, lunchtime 2 p.m. Eastern time, where Mr. Eric Denley, with about 25 years experience in sales executives, now a coach and a speaker as well, has its own coaching company, will help us understand the best ways to increase morale and motivation in the workplace. Registration can be done on our website, and you can go to the calendar, or our future webinars are listed all the way to July. To get automatic notification about future webinars, you can also follow our page on LinkedIn. The information is on our chat box, where you can sign up for our newsletter through our website to get emails every time we have a new webinar coming up. We would like to share with you the survey, which you'll get in a moment as soon as you close the webinar. It's about a minute survey. As I mentioned, we do appreciate those, and we take them very seriously and take action on those. For those who are attending over the phone call, you'll receive a follow-up email within an hour, which will also include the survey link. CO credits, for those who have attended for at least 40 minutes, you will receive a separate email in addition to the follow-up email within 24 business hours. And it will notify you that you have a 0.1 continuing education credit. You can save that email, and you can include it to your proof of claiming the credit with ASQ. Again, thank you all for your time today, and hope you have a good night, and hope to see you and hear from you on our next webinar on April 24th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.